What's going on, guys? Seth here for Tasty Loot Gaming, bringing you first ever for the channel. Recently, I did a reaction video to a video floating around the internet, Dean Takahashi playing Doom Eternal. In that video, I roasted his gameplay and critiqued it and talked about Doom a little bit. I tell you to go check out that video if you didn't see it. It got a good amount of views for us on this channel. Got us around 100 subscribers so far, which has been awesome. And got the attention of Dean Takahashi. He followed me on Twitter. We talked a little bit. He had watched my video. And we essentially set up an interview to happen, which took place like 20 minutes ago. And so this is that. And before I show you how that interview went, which just letting you know, I think it went really good. I loved the conversation we had. I want you to know that my objective in this interview was to seek answers for questions that are asked commonly that don't get answers. To shine a light on Dean, who he is, what he does, and why he does it. To get his opinions on the reactions he gets, but also to see if there's any validity to these reactions. We talked for about an hour and 40 minutes. I enjoyed every single second of it. I really, really enjoyed doing this. I'd like to do more interviews possibly in the future. Yeah, so if you watch this looking for me to essentially grill Dean and to spend an hour and 40 minutes telling him that he's bad at video games, he deserves to be fired, bad things should happen to him, it's not going to happen in this. That was not my intention ever. My intention with this is to seek information and to answer questions, and I think I did that. I'm firm at some points. I'm fair for the most part. I try and be as diplomatic as possible while talking about my perspective, my assumed perspective of my fellow gamers, and my suspicions of games journalists, and trying to find ways to fix the divide between us. So, with that, I hope you guys enjoy this. Make sure, this is like the first time I'm ever going to say this, but, comment, like this video, and share this video. This is something that I would like to, of course, for my channel's growth, be spread around, but more so, this is a conversation that I was given by Dean, and I think a lot of people should see it. I think a lot of people should see what he's like, what he has to say, his insight on the industry, and his view of us as gamers and YouTube as a whole when it comes to being a rival to games journalism. And I think I asked a lot of really good questions that get a lot of really good answers. So yeah, watch this. Tell me what you think in the comments. And yeah, enjoy. I'm recording through Skype because I was going to go through OBS, but it didn't like Skype.
Okay.
So. Okay.
I think you're taking off my glasses. I see purple on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Whoa, this is crazy. This is surreal. Okay. I reacted to your video like 2 days ago. Now I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
thanks for doing a call.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. This is crazy for me. So, my name's Seth. I run Tasty Loot Gaming, which is a very small YouTube channel. You found my video, I'm assuming, and did you watch it?
Yeah, I did.
What?
And yours was actually kinder than some of the other ones that were out there.
I was going to ask about that. What you thought of it?
And yeah, I think I love games. I'm sure you love games.
Oh yeah.
We share this in common. I think as a journalist, people put me in a different class. Like somehow 100%. I'm totally different from them, right? And certainly I'm the first to say I'm not a pro gamer, right? But there's a lot of angry gamers out there who get really angered at some of the the videos that I put up because the gaming is so bad, right? It's and this is sort of something I'm trying to understand. It's like unpack it a little. So I think a conversation about this is good from my
Definitely.
point of view. And I think your gut reaction was this is bad. And you weren't as angry as some people, but I mean, can you explain maybe there's a touch of anger here that
Okay.
maybe
I'm gonna set the
yeah
record straight real quick. Okay,
yeah
so
yeah
prior to this conversation that we're having right now, and the last day that I've done like some research on you, I know you from the Cuphead video,
yeah
which I found funny. That's about as
yeah
far as it goes. And
yeah
then the day of me reacting to your gameplay of Doom,
mhm,
I was in bed. I woke up. I checked Twitter. I wasn't even planning on making a video that day, and people are talking about your video, and I'm like, oh shit! Like I loved the Cuphead video. I thought it was funny.
uh,
I'm gonna check this out. So I do that video, and I wasn't expecting to get the views that it's gotten so far. For me, it's a lot of views. I've
mhm,
gained subscribers from it, which is cool. And yeah, but it was very unplanned. I just kind of did it.
mhm,
Um, I'm gonna try and correct you in saying that I definitely there's no anger in that video. I'm kind
uh,
of my sense of humor is very dry, so a lot of
uh,
times people think I'm like completely serious about stuff when I'm talking. And for the most part, I went into that video just kind of expecting to see some bad gameplay. I saw that. Not trying to insult you, but there's some stuff there, obviously, that seemed kind of
yeah. I can take it.
yeah,
It's okay.
basic. Well, I you have to have a thick skin. You
Yeah.
have to, because I've been going through a lot of your videos, and I think people are very cruel to you
Mhm,
in a lot of ways, and it's messed up. But I do think there is. I think it comes from somewhere. I think a lot of the anger comes from somewhere. And we can get into that,
mhm,
but yeah, I watched it and I started out just kind of like critiquing it. I thought I was kind of on point in some ways of even talking about Doom, the way it
mhm,
looked, my excitement for it, stuff that id's doing with the game. And then the further I went into that video, I got frustrated because at one point you finally get over the chain. That's kind of the meme now.
mhm,
Uh, then the video just cuts out.
mhm.
And that was probably the biggest thing I was angry about when I watched it. And
Yeah.
I'm saying angry just because we're using that word. I wouldn't say it was anger, but
Uh,
just because it almost felt like it was almost pre-planned
mhm,
to just cut it off there, almost as if like there was a
yeah.
joke to be had.
Well, I'll clear some of the air on just the context for it. Maybe
Okay,
that helps.
sure.
So it's a preview event. They said ahead of time you can play Doom Eternal for 3 hours. You start at the beginning
Hmm.
and go as much as you want, but you can only record no more than a half hour of it, and then
Okay.
you can post no more than 15 minutes, right? And so then this actually is about 2.5 hours into the game, and they said go ahead and turn on your recording, and it,
Hmm.
it so happened then that I was having a terrible time where I was.
Yeah.
So, I get to record only video of me having a hard time getting through this section. Like, there is no good video
Hmm.
that I had, say, from the previous 2 hours, right? Because
Yeah.
it just didn't let me record it. Um, so I just happened to be in a spot. And so it's not planned. I'm not trolling people by trying to
That's something I
deliberately
wanted to ask you. Yeah.
post. Yeah, not deliberately posting bad video. I'm just
Okay.
posting what I had. And I did cut it down towards, just making it sort of seem like I completed something
Hmm.
and use that as the end, and then just sort of went 10 minutes earlier, right? I even had a hard time just before that part, just figuring out, okay, what do I do next, right?
Hmm.
But I do think, and yeah, I think the last part um, seems so. I mean, I guess what was going on in my head as I'm playing this is okay. I did an interview. I didn't actually properly set this video up by
Okay.
linking to two stories that I did, right? I did an interview with Hugo Martin, who's the creative director, and I did a hands-on gameplay story, right? And normally I would do that, but I was just running late that night, and I just did this video to patch it in to those stories, right? So people mostly are coming into this video straight into the video, and then they have no context. They have one sentence of description for the video.
Yeah, like
So
I was saying, I kind of just watched that video, and then after you and I talked about doing this interview, I felt like it was important that I do some research on you a bit, and I found that interview you're talking about, where you talked. I forgot what his name was from id.
Hugo, yeah,
Hugo,
Hugo.
yeah, and it was actually a really interesting interview. It's a lot more satisfying than the gameplay of God. So, like, I was reading, I was like, okay, this is info that I can use here.
But I was going to say, I mean, the video actually illustrates something that Hugo was talking about, which was you should always stay moving, right? And this is a part where I thought, okay, they must have switched that off, because what I have to do here is solve a puzzle. Like, there's just only a few enemies. Didn't take care of them so well. I thought it was observant of you to notice that I wasn't using my right stick.
So you were using a controller?
I was using a controller.
Okay, yeah.
And I wasn't using my right stick. And wow, I was going like, wow, he's actually observant in that, like, this is not something. I mean, I normally do use the right stick when I'm but I think I made it seem like I didn't know what the right stick was when I was this, and it just, I think I'm not sure why that happened, but yeah, that was a bad on my part in not trying to use the right stick more, right? I mean,
and that's more so like just like confusion for me, because like it's impossible in my mind that you are not aware of that. Like you've been, regardless of the videos I've seen of you playing. You would have to know. Like that's why, like, when I was watching, I was like, this is bizarre, because like I don't believe for a second you don't know how to use that. But then when I was watching the video, I was kind of noticing that you're like kind of dragging in the same direction a lot while utilizing the left stick. And I was like, so why is that happening? So it's really interesting to me.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what my problem is there, but it, not self-aware of that particular part, right? Whether I deliberately fail to use the right stick more than I should. Anyway, but there was one part of the thinking here that kind of was running through my mind as I was doing it. Like I looked at the map for a long time, because I was confused, didn't know what I was doing. And you could see clearly to that part to the left that was green, that I had not been on the round platform to the left of the gray platform I had been on. And I had low health, right? I was thinking, I have low health, right? I don't want to go burn myself, right? By going into the lava. Just looking. A lot of
lava.
Yeah, there's a lot of lava there. Didn't want to just go burn myself. And I had been on that platform, and it sank, right? And so I assumed that those platforms would only sink. And if I went to the left onto that gray platform where I had not been yet, it would sink, and I would lose more health. And the other one behind it also was low, and it was gray. I had not been there, but it would also sink, and so I would lose more health trying to get from 1, 2, 3 to this spot in the corner, which was below where I had to go up high. Like I was trying to figure out, how do I get high? And these platforms to the left, they're not going to take me there. So it took me a long time to figure out, well, maybe, maybe they want me to go there. And this part about always moving, right? If I was always moving, I would have not burned myself so much, right? So it didn't occur to me that I could actually run through the lava and survive long enough to get to the safe spot that would there. And I didn't know that little booster was there that was going to shoot me up into the air to the top of the platform. So that's what took me a long time to figure out. Right? And so I was ignoring the left side and thinking, okay, there must be a solution I'm missing over on the right, which is most of the map, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I was looking so stupid.
It is interesting to get that kind of like the insight of kind of like the philosophy of what they're thinking when it comes to like constantly moving in combat, also translating to the platforming aspect. Because when I saw you jump on the platform and seeing it sinking, I'm like, okay, that's kind of neat. And then I looked at the other one and I see that one's going to sink as well. So I get where you're coming from there. It's just, yeah, the amount of time it took to get to that point of getting over the chain, I think is a lot of people's kind of issue with that. Although there was, I mentioned in the video, kind of like a pillar that was slammed into the wall that you returned to a couple times, and you had me doubting myself for a second because at first I'm like that doesn't do anything, and I saw you come back to it. I'm like, he might be on something. I don't know. Like maybe there's something going on here.
I mean,
You
this
also,
whole section, which is a little longer than this, it does have these puzzles, right? And so I think some of the people were commenting, like, there's no puzzles here. It's just simple platforming, right? And it's actually, there's more things that happen a little bit before this that are really genuinely things that you have to figure out. They're puzzles. And so you can sit there stumped for a while. You know, like, I think there's a cube stone at the very beginning of this video where I am jumping from one to another. I actually had to punch that cube and move it to another location,
okay.
so it could be in a position where I could actually jump. And to me, that's actually a puzzle. That's a clever way for them. And you didn't, there's nothing that says you have to punch this, right?
Yeah.
But I had not ever previously in the game punched a cube to move to make something move somewhere. So they're throwing fresh puzzles at you at this stage, and I think they're actually pretty good. Like when I think back on this, I think it's actually a pretty clever design. Like,
Yeah, it does sound
how
clever.
many people on their first try would have figured out that this path off to the left that's blocked by a chain would actually be the thing that you have to go do.
Yeah, that stuff always interests me too, but also just on a design perspective, like id making the game, they have to think about these things, put the block there, and hope that most people in their playthrough will, for a second, have to stop and think, possibly, but figure it out without them trying to like walk them through it. So, which has to be a difficult task.
Yeah, so I think it comes back to who has the controller in their hands. Like, in this case, I have the controller. I'm trying to figure things out. I'm actually, just experimenting. And one of the things I think you said was, paint the map, right? Go off and figure out every little thing in the part of the map where you are. And yeah, I usually do that, right? And it is only a thing only a gamer would do, because that you can find things, or you can find Easter eggs, or if you behave that way. And
I'm really bad in games like with maps. I like check every single corner. So
yeah, so I think people who are watching games a lot of the time will say, like, why doesn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Well, again, I'm the one in the control with the controller in my hands. I've tried some things that will tell me why I'm not doing what you think I should do. Sort of. Yeah. I experienced this in one of my other controversies with Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, you have a lot of them. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big ones, I've got like 4 or 5 big ones, right?
Yeah.
But with Modern Warfare, there's the scene where you're going into the townhouse and you're going up the stairs with your team and shooting people inside the rooms.
Yeah.
And when I was first able to see that scene, I was not holding the controller, right? They were playing it for us in a theater and showing us this is what happens. And so you burst into a room, a woman runs for her baby, and another is grabbing a weapon, and you have to decide who to shoot. Like, do you shoot this woman? Can you shoot the baby? And you have to go shoot the other person too. And it just makes you wonder, like, holy shit, are they really gonna put us in this position where I actually might shoot this woman who's running for what we don't realize it turns out to be a baby, right? Maybe she's running for a gun. But when I actually played that scene, right, they did not allow you to shoot the woman as she runs to the baby. And she said, don't let you shoot the baby as well. Afterward, you can actually shoot that woman. And so there's certain things they allow you to do or don't allow you to do, sort of on this microsecond kind of level. And then I could see that they were actually being fairly responsible, right? And they were trying to make a point about how gritty and violent all of this stuff is, but they were not going for the most gratuitous scene, right? And that was my problem in the first place. It's like I thought, oh shit, I've seen this like in a theater without the controller, and I go, wow, this is some horrible stuff you can do in this game. Like you can shoot a baby. So with not enough information, I kind of concluded wrongly in my perspective that they should cut this shit out. When I actually played the game, it was an excellent game.
You did like it.
I loved it. It was like one of my top 3 games of the year. I'm actually level 60 in multiplayer now.
Nice.
In Call of Duty Modern Warfare, right?
I think I'm 131 right now, but I'm kind of burnt out.
Good.
So
that's good. Yeah, that's good. But I say that just because like everybody when they see this gameplay, they're gonna say this guy doesn't play games, right? Yeah. I just want to clear that record. Yes, I do play games. I have a lot of them that are my favorites.
I actually wanted to ask you about that, but Go.
I'm not, but definitely not an esports player. I'm actually terrible. But I enjoy them so much, right? I mean, that's the qualification for me to be a game journalist, or the qualification for me to be a gamer, is that I have fun doing what I'm doing. People make fun of me, but sometimes I don't care. Because
you kind of can't care about it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be doing what you do, so I mean that's a really kind of interesting thing. Like, so first off, you said like you play games, people are watching you, they're not holding the controller, so they don't really know what you're going through when you're playing the game, when you're figuring it out. I went to E3 like last year, and a lot of times you just walk up to the booth, you play the game, you don't know what you're doing, and you just kind of figure out as you go. So I get that aspect.
That is a position that game journalists will often find themselves in, is that you get invited to a preview event for something you've never played before, right? And it doesn't last very long, maybe a couple hours, and so you are allowed to record it, but what you're going to record is your first crack at something, which is not looking good.
It's never, you're never going to do
on top of that. Now I feel like I'm offering a lot of excuses for game journalists, and not here to do that. And I'm admitting it's terrible gameplay, and should have figured some things out sooner. And as much as I am a fan of games, there's a lot of people out there who are far better gamers and far more qualified, right? So
I think the biggest point of contention when it comes to that, though, although I do see people all the time go, "You're a games journalist. You're not an expert. You should be." And I'm like, should they actually be experts at gaming? Like, I don't buy that. But I do think there's a base minimum of just understanding, and you probably do. But in the gameplay, when we watch it, it translates as like, this guy has never played a game ever before in his life, even though he says he does. We don't know. And for me, like, a lot of people are like this guy should know what he's doing, blah blah blah. Then other people will defend people like you and go like, he doesn't have to be like awesome at the game, which I agree with as well. But it's like, if I go into like I don't know, like a restaurant, ask for pizza, and then they give me like a piece of cardboard with like some ketchup on it, it's not exactly what I was looking for. Or like, if you were reporting on sports but you didn't understand the rules to football, I think that's people's biggest thing that they're upset about, is they have this idea that you don't get the game, but you're going to be telling us about it, and maybe somebody else possibly could be more qualified for that.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, no argument there. I think this is one reason why like game journalism has really stayed flat or not expanded or not grown. And you've seen so much growth on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And on Twitch. And people can trust that more because it's actual gameplay, either live or recorded, and you see the person. So I understand why it's becoming so popular. Is that it's it's kind of like going around the established media, like disintermediating the game journalists, and it's something that I think is good for players, right? And people who want to see something authentic and real, and yet, I can also come back and say, like, a lot of those YouTube videos are going to be somehow rehearsed, right? People don't become really famous for posting the first time they've played something. They post things that look really awesome, like speed runs, right?
Smart people with big followings do. I don't do that. That's why my channel's so small.
Yeah, but I mean, I think in some ways they're not posting their most embarrassing stuff, and they're not just sort of posting things as they happen, which is largely what I'm doing. I'm if I have a good game though in Call of Duty, I'll post that rather than post my worst, most terrible game, right? But in this case of Doom Eternal, I had no choice. This was the only video I had, right? So, would it show something in the game? I thought it would show that, you have to actually figure out how to do a puzzle. And so, when I was deciding, should I post this or not post this? Because it's not good gameplay. It's not my finest moment.
So that was something I was actually going to ask you about is what was your objective in, first off, playing it, obviously recording it, but then also uploading, and what did you expect the reaction to be? Because, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think, I mean, a lot of videos that I do post, people don't tend to care about them either, right?
What kind of videos are those typically?
Well, let's see. Showing something different that people haven't seen in a preview that I've gotten hold of. Like, say, when I was reviewing Modern Warfare, I was posting a lot of either the single player action or my first time playing the duels or whatever. So those ones, people will see. Oh yeah, I haven't seen this yet, and I'll play it. And so there's like a time element to them. And yeah, I think when you review a game, it should include some kind of video of some kind, just because you're trying to explain in words to people, what is really best seen in a video, right? And so whenever I'm posting a review, which is not often, I think this is the other mistake that people assume about me, is that I must review, because I'm a game journalist, I must review 20, 30 games a year, right?
Yeah.
I actually review about a half dozen myself.
I was surprised to find that out.
Yeah, we have a team of 4 people at GamesBeat. They do more of the reviews. I do less of them. And my specialty is the business of games, right? I write about the business of games, and I think where I will brag is that I think I'm better at that than anybody else in the world.
It's quite the claim, but actually, I just before this interview, I was watching videos of you talk about. There was some Samsung event you were at. There was a couple other videos I watched where you were talking about where the industry was going, the competition of it, AR versus VR and stuff like that. And I was actually like really interested in what you had to say. So it's like this must be his thing. It's like the tech and the business.
Yeah, I think the intersection of tech, business, and games is what I really like, and I think you can't be good at this still without playing games. And so I play everything from mobile games to VR to AR to watching esports to playing PC and console games as well. So, but that doesn't leave a lot of time for each thing, right? And so and then I do try to play what I like, and when I like something, I will play it as much as I can. So there's not pressure on me to finish something within 1 week and move on to the next game. If I really like something, like I enjoyed Death Stranding actually, and I finished it.
Nice.
I looked at the end of it and had put 64 hours into it.
I think
But
I
I
beat
only
it in
finished it.
62 hours. So yeah, about the same
Yeah,
time.
and I only finished it a couple weeks ago, so it took me that long to actually
And you
get
liked it?
that enough time. I don't know what I think about Death Stranding.
Uh-oh. I loved it. It
I
was my game of the year last year.
I was very enthralled to find out what is this ending going to be, right?
Hmm.
And I enjoyed the deliveries, just going back and forth, and
Oh
I
yeah.
thought it was cool when they ratcheted up the pressure for each delivery. Like, oh, this time you're delivering a human, right?
Oh yeah.
And if you screw it up, somebody's going to die, right?
Hmm.
So
Or a
uh,
bomb on your back or
yeah, yeah. So I think you know, but it was as bizarre a game as I've ever seen, and that's why I'm not sure what I think about how this turned out. And I can
Mhm.
understand why a lot of people just dropped it as well.
Yeah,
No.
I get the criticisms of it. I don't agree with them, but I understand where they're coming from, which I think is really important when somebody has a negative opinion about something, is to understand where they're coming from because it's still valid. So,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Um,
yes, good.
so let's see. Um, yeah, I think the part that I'm trying to understand is like I saw that CNET story a while ago by Ian Scher about he was observing that angry gamers were getting triple the views that they would get if they had a normal video, right?
Hmm.
And so that was promoting a culture of a lot of videos where somebody's ridiculing something, right?
Yeah,
And I'm not sure how we can reduce that.
yeah.
And you were among the kindest, I think, of the folks out
I
there. There's
hope so.
some folks were really really rough. And that happens
I
each
agree.
time. Like
Yeah.
like say with Cuphead, I actually got 2 death threats. With Modern Warfare, I also got a couple of death threats.
Yeah.
Um, but they're sort of because of the way people sort of started and interpreted what I was doing. It's like
Hmm.
with the meme, I guess, that game journalists can't play. Here's more proof of that,
Yeah.
and that just sort of electrifies the audience towards someone like me, right? And
Yeah.
it just I'm not sure where we can have these types of people come together for a conversation, right?
Yeah, I made some notes for this interview, and one of them I wanted to ask you about was bridging the divide between games journalism and, for lack of a better term, the gamers, I guess.
Hmm.
And I do, while looking into your videos and your controversies, you're way too controversial. Like I don't get it because you seem like a really nice dude. So it's like it's funny that people are like, oh, like every single one of your videos, there's
Hmm.
just comments of just like pure vitriol. And
Hmm.
some of it, I get some of it, like, oh, he's not good, and from what we've seen, it seems like that. But then people are like, he should be fired, someone should punch him in the face, all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, not only is this just ridiculous and disgusting, but also it's not productive. There's nothing being exchanged here. There's no conversation being had. You just are upset that someone didn't meet your standard, and now you
Hmm.
want the worst for them. And it's kind of it's disgusting. It's not kind of, it's just
Hmm.
disgusting. So I've also been thinking about how we can bridge this because there absolutely is a divide when it comes to these two things. When you're talking about angry gamers on
Hmm.
YouTube getting the views, which is again one reason why I don't get a lot of views on my channel, is I don't like to embrace the drama. I don't like to embrace the negativity.
Hmm.
I ribbed your video. I
Hmm.
roasted it a bit, but I'm not sitting there saying like, "Oh, you're a piece of shit. You suck." Blah blah blah. And because it's just not something I'm really into doing. But I do think that the people feel frustrated, and so when they watch someone else vent that frustration that they share with them, they feel validated, and um, it just helps alleviate that. Maybe they don't got the
Mhm.
platform, maybe they don't got the words to express themselves, but somebody else does, and it probably just feels good to have someone kind of just agree with you on something. I think
Mhm.
that's about as far as it goes. But with everything, just like in games journalism, it seems like they've kind of, you guys possibly, um, have kind of like put up a wall as well of going like gamers hate us, we
Mhm.
kind of hate them, so just listen to us, but we're not open for a conversation. And it
Mhm.
almost seems like there's a war happening now where people are
Mhm.
just looking for the validation of their team and what their team thinks and just kind of supporting and backing that. And I think it
Mhm.
really sucks
Mhm.
because um, I'm sick of the negativity. I go on
Mhm.
Twitter, it's just people bitching at each other
Yeah.
over the most mundane things. It's the stupidest thing. Oh, he's not good at something. Let's fucking get him fired, River. I'm like,
Mhm.
why? What is that? What does that fix?
Yeah. And yeah, it's certain assumptions about like say, oh, he's a game reviewer for a
Hmm.
living, whereas that's not true. I'm a games business journalist, and I've done that for 20 something years, and so
Yeah.
that context is missing in a I just sort of need to always remember to put the context into the description of the video that I'm posting, right?
Hmm.
It is very laborious to do that because when I'm doing it, I've already written 2 stories or something like that, and I'm just embedding this into those stories. It's sort of not meant to be the whole I guess content that someone should see. Like I would not recommend if you're trying to understand something I've written about, or that you only look at my YouTube videos, right? it's just
Hmm.
this is not so. So there's a failing there on my part, actually, to add the context necessary for people to actually understand what this is, right?
Yeah.
I think also, like, I when I get defensive and I say I'm a gamer, just like you,
Hmm.
there's a lot of skepticism there, and the thing I typically say is like, oh, I play, Call of Duty is my favorite game. Like I told you, I'm level 60 in multiplayer, and then they look at my videos and they go, oh, yeah, you're a camper who hangs out with a light machine gun, and that's how you survive. And
Eh, yes.
and they're going like, okay, yeah, you're horrible at Call of Duty. Like you're not
Hmm.
even self-aware that you're bad at Call of Duty as well. Um,
Hmm.
and I think I have this self-awareness, and I do like to make fun of myself as well. Um,
Yeah.
I think I've heard from so many people though that like I would never post the videos that you do, or I would never post a video of my own gameplay
Hmm.
because they know that it's going to attract people who are just going to say how terrible it is or criticize it, and I think that's a shame, right? And it's like I said, people, I'm in it for the fun. If you had fun, there should be no reason you should not be proud enough to post your video of something where you enjoyed yourself, right?
Hmm.
So, so you know, I hesitate to say I'm celebrating mediocrity,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of us out there who are like that. And then they tell me it's like, oh, I'm sorry, people are ragging on you about your bad Cuphead play. I'm terrible at that game too, and
Hmm.
I'm embarrassed to say that. And yeah, I don't think
I mean,
people should
it's a
be
hard
ashamed.
game. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and uh, well, I've made enough excuses for
yeah.
Cuphead as well.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it too much because you've
Yeah,
already explained
yeah,
yourself so much about that anyway.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I'm glad that you're willing to talk. I mean, the other thing that I believe in, like, I do believe in the journalism part.
Yeah.
Um, I've stayed in it for 30 years because it is so fun. And the most interesting thing about it is that you get to talk to almost everybody. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think it would be terrible for journalists to actually self-select and say, I'm not going to talk to gamers because they all hate me, right?
Yeah.
Um, I
Which I
think,
appreciate.
yeah, I think uh, talking to other people and getting other points of view that are not exactly a mirror of my own is actually the whole point of journalism.
Yeah, so, definitely. Just kind of putting a light on things and kind of understanding things, which I completely appreciate. And yeah, when it comes to journalism, I'm glad that you're willing to do that, because it seems like there's so many that are unwilling to even humor a conversation or even look into why people might have a problem with something or why they think something. And a lot of times they kind of insert their own idea of why that's happening without investigating it, which, in my opinion, is the reason you're a journalist in the first place, is to find things out. So even if, it might possibly hurt your feelings or, not be the conclusion you wanted. So,
so yeah, I mean, I appreciate you actually being willing to do this. And, it was funny when the first time around when Cuphead was just snowballing as a video, I was starting to ask some people on YouTube, hey, do you want to have a conversation as well? And I did that with a half dozen or so people, and none of them wanted to talk to me, actually. And there were some of the ones with the harsh videos, and and one guy thought about it for a while and goes, no, I'm not gonna do it. And I'm like, wow, there's this divide for sure. And it's not just me that feels this divide can't be bridged, I guess, right?
I feel the same. That's one thing that I'd be lying if I said I didn't have this thing in the back of my head telling me that there's a possibility that maybe something I say might be used out of context in something, possibly. I don't know. But I don't really feel like I have much negative things to say. I more so, like you, want to understand. My whole point in this conversation is I want to understand you more and understand why these videos exist and how you feel about them, and possibly kind of find a middle ground between the people who just blindly go, hey, I can't stand this dude because I saw 2 of his videos, and you possibly maybe putting out there that there's some validity to some of their concerns.
Yeah. Definitely lots of validity out there. I'm not trying to troll people either, where, a lot of people after the Cuphead thing told me, you've got, a million view career here for your videos. Just play bad, put them up, and people will hate them, and you'll get rich from that. We're like, no, that's not the point of what I'm trying to do. I am trying to show people what it's like to play a game.
Well, and that's the thing that's interesting too, is people really get their tinfoil hats on with you, because I got people saying that you're not a real gamer, which is subjective. You're a wannabe political journalist, that you insert politics into gaming because you didn't get into that, I guess. That you're unfit to talk about and review games, and that a lot of people think you fake your videos because you're either trolling, and you're aware of this, or you're looking for the views. But you did take down the Doom video, right?
Yeah, I'm. That's kind of an experiment on my side to see whether or not this is going to work. Like now that I've been through several tweet storms, right? I've noticed interesting things, which is they last about 10 days, almost exactly, before people stop sending in, very outrageous tweets or whatever.
That's interesting.
And with Cuphead, I said, okay, I'm going to actually try to talk to these people. I was talking to them. And I think it only made it worse. it just like blossomed. And, people would then, it'd be like me trying to have an argument with 100,000 people. And they're all going, oh, I thought of a better thing to say, and then they just hit me with it and go like, oh yeah. Or they'd make a joke and it'd be, at my expense. And I think, I think with Cuphead, I learned, you can't argue with the internet, right? Just whatever. The video went on, got lots and lots of views. I wasn't sure whether the video, all of that was just going to stop if the video just wasn't there. A bunch of people told me, take down that video. It makes you look stupid. And I said, well, I am a journalist, right? And so we're supposed to stand for freedom of speech. I just leave it up. I leave it up, right? And with this one, all of the advice that I've received ever since then is don't engage with people who are trying to get you into an argument, right? And then just block them and just move on and they'll forget about you. So I was trying that with the Doom video, but someone very kindly went into the Internet Archive and dug it out. And
Of
so
course.
it's I haven't put it up again. But what I was sort of secretly waiting for is this for some of the anger to die down,
Hmm.
so that it wouldn't get death threats. And I just put it back up later with a longer note explaining, here's what I was trying to do.
Yeah,
Uh,
gotcha.
so I'm not trying to totally censor people.
Hmm.
They can have their say, but I am trying to reduce the severity of the storm, right?
Yeah.
So,
There.
because it's not good for me or my family, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And like I said, I do not agree at all with anybody who's threatening you or even insulting you or like uh, even joking about like hurting you. That's insane to me. But a lot of the people talking about just the gameplay alone, that is what it is. That video is out there. People are gonna
Mhm.
say what they're gonna say. Hopefully, they're not too mean about it. Um, but it is interesting when you talk about taking the video down and then putting it back up and the whole censorship thing because with the Doom video that I did, my reaction to your video, within 8 minutes of me uploading it, I had people popping in going, they took this video down. Don't delete your video. They're trying to get rid of it and all this stuff. And like, I was just like, I don't really see, like, I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna keep it up for the gamers. I was just like more so like I don't have a reason to take it down, so it'll be here unless someone
Mhm.
like hits me up going like, "Hey, you legally have to get rid of that," and I'd be like, "Well, we need to have a conversation." But
Yeah.
but yeah, so there was like this almost uh, this idea that someone might come for that video, and I
Mhm.
and I was just like I said, I just woke up that day. I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, why are people so like into this? It's just a video of someone who's not doing that great in a game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Hard to grasp and understand, but people have time on their hands to think about this stuff.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I'm trying to actually avoid situations like this, and
Mhm.
I think, and yet, I think what has to happen still. Like I was at a dinner with a Microsoft executive a couple of weeks ago, and he said,
Mhm.
what Microsoft cares about is that there are 2.8 billion people in the world who have played games and might play more, and that is our target. The people we reach with the Xbox is less than 100 million, right? And so what are we going to do to attract those people in? And I think if the game industry is successful at attracting those people in, it doesn't mean that they have to give up on all those Xbox players, right? And say, adios, hardcore gamers, we don't care about you anymore. And
Mhm.
there is this fear, I think, because of Gamergate and things like that, that's what's happening is that games are getting dumbed down. They're making mobile games that are shitty with all the microtransactions,
Mhm.
and that they're forgetting about us. And games are actually, to me, expansive. Like they're always flowing onto new platforms, and they're always going to be that way. They're going to invade every part of culture, and I think once you do reach more of those people, you wind up having the budgets to make incredible games, right? And they can definitely take that money and reinvest it into the hardcore games and make those hardcore gamers extremely happy. So,
Yeah.
so the pathway is not to draw lines around a ghetto of the game industry. The
Mhm.
pathway to success is to actually welcome this accessibility. And I have this fear that what we have, like sort of on YouTube, is people who've circled these wagons and
Mhm.
saying like we want to protect, games and keep people like Dean Takahashi out of this circle because he doesn't belong here, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And once again, I'm arguing on behalf of mediocrity and all
Yeah.
that. We should embrace all gamers, right? Um,
I agree. I do feel the entrenchments though that people have and kind of like it almost feels like cliques in gaming, specifically um I guess a lot of us that aren't games journalists almost feel like the conversation has left the games journalists mouths. It's now ours
mhm,
because of things like Twitter. We get the
mhm,
info a lot of times when you guys get the info, and
mhm.
so we are able to just have that conversation. And I feel a lot of people are trying to, on purpose, exclude games journalism from it, almost as if you guys aren't needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you guys will get scoops every once in a while, and that's the info that we need. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a mixed bag. But I do, I mean, I find myself doing that sometimes. With I kind of did it with Death Stranding and
Mm-hmm.
IGN. They gave it a 6.8, which I don't care about their score. It's fine. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have your opinion. I don't care at all. But they kept running with that story over and over and over again, repeating, in which I get also new time zone or different time zones. You got to get that out there, let everybody know about it. But they're doing it for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And as the conversation of Death Stranding kept progressing positively in my circles, I guess, they stopped talking about the 6.8 and started talking about the game is actually pretty good if you play it just a little longer. And I
Mm-hmm.
almost viewed that like they were starting to see that their 6.8 wasn't popular, so they needed to change the narrative. But
Mm-hmm.
then they're also trying to invite people to come over to IGN
Mm-hmm.
to read what they have to say about it, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it almost seemed like they're trying to monetize this conversation that had been going on for like 4 weeks at that point.
Yeah.
And that's one time where I could feel like I was part of that circle of people who was like, no, no, IGN, just let us talk about this. We don't need you and your ads and all that stuff. I know you got to make money, but for the most part, I don't get entrenched like that a lot of times. I watch it and I'm like, is this necessary? But that is one time that I definitely was part of that. But so
Mm-hmm.
I think there's
I
I
think
think there's some
like
validity to it.
yeah, I agree that I think alternatives to the mainstream point of view or the mainstream journalists or the game journalists are definitely needed and
Hmm.
appreciated, right? I think people who have good ideas but don't necessarily have the access should be heard, and that applies to say indie game developers as well as to gamers. And it's wonderful actually that people have things like YouTube to actually express themselves and
Hmm.
participate in this whole sort of marketplace of ideas. And if they have the great ideas, they become popular,
Yeah.
and they can become far bigger than folks like the game journalists, right? And I'm fine with that world. I'm actually glad that there are alternative viewpoints that exist, and I think I don't mind competing for whatever sort of slice of this that is left for me, the game journalist, right?
Yeah.
I think I can bring something to that table, and still, maybe it's not with gameplay videos,
Hmm.
but there's other things that I can contribute, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, just a suggestion with you, I would say for a redemption arc, either practice in a game and get really good at it, and then just start destroying people. That'd be really funny to watch because you just be like, ah, you guys used to make fun of me, now I'm destroying you. Or maybe do commentary over your videos to give perspective because I think a lot of people, when they watch something, like
Yeah.
whenever I do gameplay videos, and obviously your VentureBeat, GamesBeat, way more successful than what I got going on. But in my experience, people enjoy hearing what I have to say about a game when I play it. And so
Hmm.
a lot of times I like to do a commentary as I play it, or maybe give an intro to the video and kind of tell them this is what happened in this video. Hopefully you enjoy blah blah blah. And I think that context really matters.
Hmm.
But going back real quick, when you're talking about kind of sharing the landscape of gaming with YouTube and games journalism, I think one thing that's a huge problem and a frustration for gamers is that it seems like games journalism shares perspectives across the board. A lot of times you'll Google something new that just came out, and on Google, it'll just have every single main publication, and they'll have almost the exact same title to their articles. And I think not only are people just assuming they're all in on it together, possibly or just copying each other's articles, but it's also just bland and boring to
Hmm.
to see the same opinions.
Yeah.
Like I think people want different opinions and not like it's black and white like you're going to go to YouTube and get the opposite opinion, but you do get more nuance
Hmm.
there than you get with games journalism. It seems, of course, there's going to be outliers, there's going to be variables, but it is for me a frustration, but I know everyone I talk to agrees with that typically.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think you got some good advice for me here. I think the speaking over or sort of voiceover on some of my videos might be a better idea. It's sort of like the time I've put into videos is maybe 1% of my job, and maybe I need to actually change that if I'm going to keep doing them. I mean, I do enjoy getting the feedback from them when it's not so harsh, but
vitriolic, yeah.
yeah. But I think that makes a lot of sense, and uh, I often will post like the ending video of a game or something, and like spoiler alert, here's how this game ends. And to me, it's just an expression that actually I do play games and I will finish them, right? And so I did finish Doom 2016, and it was a very hairy experience, right?
Yeah.
I think I remember I had to knock it down to the easiest level just to get through the final boss, right? And that's embarrassing, but still I'd say, hey, I finished it. And
did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I thought it was an amazing experience, and
Awesome.
and I thought back to actually playing the original Doom in 1993, right? And that's how old I am. Is that like, I was an adult when this came out, and that sort of changed my whole video gaming life, right? So yeah, I would sort of make the commitment that I will finish Doom Eternal. I'm not sure exactly what level I will finish that on.
As long as you enjoy it, I mean, that's just kind of the point of it.
Yeah. So
from what you played of Doom Eternal, was it fun? Did you enjoy it? Obviously, map frustrations and
yeah, I mean, they clearly achieved what they said they wanted to, which was to get you out of the corner and shooting from behind cover and proceeding very carefully and slowly. And yeah, you're absolutely forced to be on the run and to if you're in a corner, something would spawn behind you, right? Just to get you out of there. And
so you can't camp.
That's exactly what they say they want to achieve. I mean, I think when you're running around like that, to the best advice that I would have is that you really have to know or remember what action is going to get you what you need. Like if you're short on ammo, or if you're low on health, if you're low on health, you have to glory kill the guys who you're stunning, right? And ammo, you have to do something else, right? So once you sort of memorize those things, then I think you can be very effective on the run, and more effective on the run than you are hiding out somewhere and camping, right? So
yeah,
but it's an excellent game.
Yeah, it looks great. In fact, I just assumed it was going to be good. I'm going to pick it up when it comes out. But your video, even though the gameplay is what it is, I was still looking at the game, going like, "Oh, this looks really good." Like the whole time I was analyzing the game, going like, "This looks really awesome." I liked the 2016 one a lot. I grew up playing games like Quake and Doom and run and gun games, and they're really kind of recapturing that, which I'm really happy about. Yeah. So another thing I want to ask you about is since you have controversies under your belt, Doom Eternal, Cuphead, Call of Duty, the Mass Effect debacle that happened. Don't want to really revisit those too much, but how many times do you think, in your opinion, because you've apologized for some of these, made it clear that there was an issue that you might have had with the game or didn't quite understand something or something like that?
Yeah.
From our perspective, how many times do you think it's okay to have these situations that don't meet the standards of people who are supposed to be listening or should be listening to you about what you think about games? And what can you do, maybe, unless you don't feel like you need to possibly remedy that kind of break in the connection between us and you?
Well, I think I can take the advice of everybody, my bosses included, which is you should slow down, slow down, and not try to do as much as you try to do, right? And that naturally results, like, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, that's going to result in better quality, right? And so this striving to juggle a lot of things and to be first at something, journalists always want to be first, right?
Yeah.
But if you're first with something bad, then that's not going to be good for you, right? And so I think I enjoy being in this environment where I'm always trying something, right? And sometimes, like, if I post a Call of Duty video and it's an early one, it'll get 100,000 views or something like that or more, because it's the first chance people have to see this gameplay environment, and that, whether it meets their expectations or not, and so it sort of serves its purpose. I also spend most of my time trying to understand a business, talking to the CEOs or creative directors who run these businesses, and trying to understand them. Like, one of the most satisfying things I ever did in my career was interview the guys who did The Last of Us, and try to do a definitive interview of, like, I've now played the game from beginning to end. I consider it my favorite game. And now I want to interview you about it.
That's your favorite game?
Yeah.
Nice. It's one of my favorite games too.
Yeah. And it's like being able to interview J.R.R. Tolkien about creating the Lord of the Rings, right? To me, that when I get a chance to do that, that's wonderful. But what one of the requirements is for that is that I have to play that game from beginning to end. And I think I do want to keep doing that. Like, I don't want to cut this part out of my job and say I can still be good at the business of games journalism without playing games. I don't think that's the answer. Like, maybe, people tell me maybe I should stop reviewing games or stop trying to review games. And maybe there's something, there where, I should hand that over to people who do nothing but that, right?
Yeah.
People maybe who won't anger other people as much. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm here to admit that I try to do too many things and wind up making mistakes that get people pissed off, right? So, yeah. I take suggestions.
Which again, I think is, I really kind of hate the amount of anger you get over something that I think is pretty not that big. The review thing I get, but like the gameplay stuff, when people get pissed at you, like, I get where they're coming from, but I think some of them get way too extreme. But I do think it is I do think it's a symptom of a bigger problem in people's distrust with gaming journalism. I think they're just venting and taking out on individual. So like every time someone messes up, all their anger of the whole picture goes to that person. And again, I don't condone it, but at the same time, I understand where it's coming from. I mean, like the amount of times that this kind of war between journalism and gamers happens is too often. And I think that just kind of builds up and builds up and builds up. And then when someone sees someone who's a professional playing a game, they become angry because they're like, I already can't stand, this whole system of games journalists, and now this guy can't even do something that I think at least I could do better than him, and it turns into something a lot more aggressive than it should be. But again, I think it's an emotional thing that just builds up. Not to defend some of the stuff people say, but I always try and look at everything and try and understand why it's happening, because I don't think people are just haters. Some people are just trolls, but like, I don't think people just naturally wake up one day and go, I'm gonna go find something to hate on, or like this gameplay sucks, I'm just going to give this guy a super hard time. Some people are like that, but like for the most part, I think it is just a symptom of something that, in my opinion, has been going on for years. It's like 5 years now, 6 years now, of just people getting more and more fed up to the point where people would like to see games journalism just disappear, which I'm not 100% on board with that, because I think there is value in people seeking information, but that divide is real, and I feel like it is growing.
And I would, still say that I think that synthesizing information that you're getting from sort of multiple sources, talking to the game company, talking to the CEO, talking to the game developer, watching the reaction of gamers, and and then sort of taking that feedback and bouncing it off of those people. This sort of collection of information that you then synthesize and analyze. I think that's the value of what game journalism is supposed to deliver.
I can agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, I think on, say, YouTube, it gets right the part about authenticity of gameplay, and giving a visceral reaction as a gamer to what you're playing right now. That's what it's great for. But it's missing a lot of those other elements I mentioned. Like, that YouTuber doesn't go out and interview the people who made the game or the CEO or whatever. And there is this divide. Like, people say EA is nothing but a shitty microtransaction company now, right? Yep. And if you interview the people at these companies, they're very intelligent, and their response might be like, this is the way that you're going to get better games from us, and this has to be part of the puzzle. It's not the only thing we're going to do, and we're still going to make other great games like Battlefield 5, right? And so I think if game journalism went away and YouTube was the only thing we'd have, we would have a larger gulf, a larger divide between, say, the creators of games and the people who play them.
Interesting. The EA thing's interesting too. That's something I always try and think about in a more nuanced perspective, because I talk gaming with a lot of people all the time, and when you bring up EA, it is something that people instantly, kind of like games journalism, will instantly go, fuck them, they do awful stuff, they got really bad practices and all that kind of stuff. And I agree with a lot of that, but at the same time, I don't think anyone goes into developing a game for years trying to make a bad game or make a game that's going to make people unhappy. I don't buy that at all. So I think it normally just comes down to leadership, whoever's directing the project, and maybe their intentions of the team making a good game, but also maybe sneaking in some ways to monetize more money. In my opinion, I think games probably should have went up in price a while ago, and I think they're making up for that in microtransactions. And it makes sense to me completely, but it just comes down to how you do it, how transparent you are. I think people really appreciate transparency. They just want to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Yeah. And yeah, so it's kind of similar in that sense of like, I'm not the biggest EA fan, but I do play their games. I think Respawn's a fantastic developer. I think everything they make is awesome. I have played Battlefield and been a big fan of it. I don't really play sports games, and but I still play their games, but I have my complaints about them like anybody else. But I do think some people just don't look into the layers of what the problem is, but more so that EA is just the problem.
Yeah, yeah, definitely well said.
So. Thank you. I think about this stuff a lot because I'm having these conversations, and some people are just like, I hate this. I'm like, but why? Like there can't be a solution to be found if we just go, that's bad or that's good. It's just it's not enough.
Yeah,
that's the big reason why I wanted to talk to you, is like you're not a bad guy who's just bad at games, bad at journalism, bad at everything. I don't buy that. So I wanted to know, like, what's the deal? Like, what's going on here? Why are people so upset? I get where they're coming from in some sense, but like at the same time, I read some of the articles you've wrote, and I thought they were good. So like, you didn't come off as someone who didn't understand the industry.
Oh, I appreciate you. I mean, you're helping me be more transparent. I mean, generally speaking, doing videos is not my thing. I'm an old school newspaper journalist, right? Print and writing is my thing. So I don't get the opportunities to explain myself as much as maybe I need to, right? So
yeah, transparency. I think it's really important. As much as it can be uncomfortable to maybe come out and say like, I messed up here, but I'm working on this or whatever. I think that's one of the biggest things gamers are just looking for, is just not necessarily even just a conversation, but just answers. Like I said, in the comments of your videos, there's a lot of just vitriol. There's some stuff I get, but then there's people just asking these questions into the ether that are never going to get answered to them unless they research it. I don't think they're gonna. They got things to do. And I read those questions and I'm like, maybe I can get some answers on some of that stuff because I think there's a frustration in going like, why? Why is this a thing? Why? And then you don't get the answer. So you make up your own answer.
Yeah. No, so maybe one experiment would be is if I repost this video, maybe I repost it with that kind of explanatory, transparent voiceover, or just fill out that description as much as I can about what this is. So this is helping me.
Awesome, because that's all I want. I my channel is my whole purpose with making my channel is conversation community. I don't like to have like drama brigades and make people angry. I don't like to get into that stuff. And I like to just talk about the nuance of things and just kind of welcome all perspectives and stuff like that. So it's really important to me that, we're all playing video games, regardless of if you don't like games journalists or if you're a games journalist and you think gamers are just way too aggressive and they got these conspiracy theories, blah, blah, blah. We're all playing games at the end of the day. We all enjoy playing them. And I would just like the whole atmosphere to be less combative. I don't like the tribes. I don't like people, coming after each other. That's like even when I was roasting your video, my intention with that, even though I was half asleep when I did it, was not to go, Dean Takahashi sucks. It was more so like, oh, he made another video. It's kind of funny to watch. I'm gonna kind of say my piece and then be done with it because I'm not trying to drive home that you as an individual have anything wrong with you inherently because I don't believe that. So everything I do when it comes to this discussion is to more so just kind of expand it because there's always more to say. People have people are so just ready to say what they need to say and be done with it, and that goes nowhere. It's not productive.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I just gotta try to communicate. I do enjoy games and appreciate the people who make them, and I don't hate the people who play them.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a couple questions about gaming in general?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so because I kind of want to get behind the scenes with you a bit here when it comes to your preferences on gaming. So let's see. Why'd you get into games journalism?
Let's see. So I am 55 years old, and I played the original Pong when it came out with my brother, and
Nice.
that was like at a luxury lounge in a tennis court at the Tropicana Hotel in Las Vegas, and we stumbled on this thing and started putting quarters in it, and we just loved it. So I grew up with the arcades and playing games like Doom and Wing Commander. I mean, I bought a 486 computer just to play Wing Commander, and I had some gaps. Like we weren't, say, wealthy enough, or we didn't have enough parental approval to get a Nintendo, right? And so that's definitely a big gap in my upbringing. But I grew up as a fan of games, and when it was 1990s, I mean, there weren't nearly as many gamers around. Like maybe it's 40% of the population at the most, right?
Yeah.
And so when I got jobs in journalism, I shifted into covering business and technology, and at the Los Angeles Times in Orange County, I was covering some of the companies that were there, and started covering Brian Fargo's Interplay and a company that would later call itself Blizzard, right?
Okay.
And so I did the very first interview with Blizzard, which was fun at that time. And at the Wall Street Journal, the video game beat came open, and they said, in the San Francisco office there, where I was working in 1996, they asked me, do you want to cover games? And I said, yeah, hey, I play games. And they looked around and said, yeah, because none of us else here do. So I started covering games as a real beat in 1996, and that's where I start counting my 24 years of covering it nonstop. And the funny thing back then was that it was maybe 10% of my job or 20%, and I covered chips and other technology. But now it's flipped, where it's most of my job is covering the business of games. I still live in Silicon Valley, and I cover the tech companies, and I go to things like CES. But games is the heart of what we do. I put on a game conference called GamesBeat Summit, and I do that once a year and invite a bunch of CEO types to come and give talks. And then I also I have 3 other colleagues who are doing this full time with me, and they're in different places around the states, and they get a chance to play more games. And so, as a publication, we round out a bit with me more in business, the other guys on reviews, and an editor as well. So
very cool. And then sometimes you put out videos and people get upset, but outside of that, you're doing the games journalism, which is cool. That's very cool. And I'm 33, so I was going through the 90s as a kid, but I was a gamer then, and grew up playing Sega Genesis, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, played a little bit of Atari, but yeah, there's way less gamers back then, so it's been kind of crazy to watch that demographic grow. Let's see, what kind of games do you find yourself playing for fun, not for work?
Oh, I have my list open over here from the sort of favorite games. The Last of Us is number 1. I think Halo would be number 2. Red Dead Redemption 2, Grand Theft Auto 5, God of War, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, way up there. Hellblade, Spider-Man, Apex Legends, The Unfinished Swan, Journey, Clash Royale, Wolfenstein, all of those games, The Walking Dead, BioShock Infinite, Titanfall, Alan Wake, Pokemon Go, Until Dawn, That Dragon Cancer, Horizon Zero Dawn. All of those were on my list of the top games of the decade.
Oh wow!
And I finished all of those games, right? Yeah, I think if I were to go off and just sort of play things that say weren't as significant in the industry, I would play war games more. So I played Steel Battalion 2 this summer for something like 100 hours or so, and then I played Total War Attila some years ago for something like 300 hours.
I cannot get into Total War, but that's cool.
Yeah. So that's kind of my plate of things that I like.
So genre-wise, you find yourself liking like strategic, like battle games, possibly?
Yeah, those. I mean, I do like shooters more,
Shooters,
and I play shooters much more often because they're almost the main thing in the market now. I think.
Yeah, they're very popular.
A lot of the old style war games, like say Panzer General, they're not making them in a say mainstream way, which is with large budgets, right?
Yeah.
Anymore. They're still around, but a lot of them are indie. I think the Steel Battalion series is one of these strong ones that's still kicking very well.
Am I thinking of the right game? Steel Battalion, the one with the big controller.
Oh, that was the original Xbox game, but no. This is like Steel Battalion 2 was about the war in the East between Russia and Germany.
Gotcha.
World War II game, and it does sort of do that Total War strategic zoom very well, which is you can see an anti-tank gunner loading a gun and
that's cool.
shooting at a tank far away, and then you can zoom out and you can see this whole strategic map of what's happening across miles of terrain, right? And just zoom in and zoom out, and then actually play it that way. It's really cool.
That does sound cool. I thought you were talking about that other game. I was like, you got that big controller? That's crazy. That makes way more sense. What's your preferred platform? What do you normally find yourself playing on? PC, PS4, Xbox, Switch?
I think it's shifted to the PS4. I don't like the PS4. I mean, PlayStation controller, but like to the point where I will play all shooters now with a game controller. And so I did play Call of Duty on the PC, but I played it with a game controller because I've kind of lost the ability. I mean, if people made fun of me for my gameplay, they would make even more fun of me with my mouse and keyboard gameplay now.
Oh wow! How do you fare with the controller on PC?
Not great, not as well. I think the sort of moving and shooting ability for me is much easier with a controller for some reason. I mean,
That
the sort of being able to fluidly aim and move
mhm.
at the same time is something that, I think that stuck with me since Halo. Really,
Yeah.
it's like that was the first shooter to get the sticks right.
100%. I bring that up all the time. Like Halo is the one that kind of set the standard of what FPS would be on consoles,
Mhm.
specifically in the way they feel on a controller. So I agree with you. And a lot of times I'll get into debates with people about like mouse and keyboard versus controller. And of course, mouse is so much better when it comes to fine-tuned aiming. But I do
Mhm.
prefer an analog stick for movement because there's just those minute differences of being able to walk to run and all that kind of stuff that I really prefer, especially
Yeah.
in like attack shooter, which is something I enjoy playing a lot.
I feel like we need a hybrid controller of some kind of, your game controller, and then when you want to snipe somebody,
Mhm.
just pull
I've
out that
I've seen
mouse.
some weird ones, but I don't. I would like a main company to make one, so I know it's not complete trash. So, but I'd be down to try something like that because yeah, I would like to marry the two worlds. What was your game of the year for 2019, and what games are you most hyped for in 2020?
2019 was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and
Nice.
yeah, I think I put Call of Duty Modern Warfare number 2 and Apex Legends at number 3. And it was funny that say Vince Zampella has a role in all of this, the Respawn guy.
Yep.
And yeah, I thought Fallen Order. I mean, in some ways it was like very interesting that these are EA games, right? I mean, people will say, "Oh, they're not EA games; they're Respawn games." But it's still for the first time in a long time I've had EA games at the top of my list uh,
Yeah.
for the best games of the year. And yeah, Fallen Order. I think it had the right sort of mixtures of things like the Dark Souls sensibility of having kind of some unforgiving sword fights, right, or
Hmm.
lightsaber fights, and then this exploration, great story, some very good cinematics to it, and like a more interesting Star Wars story than the movies I've seen, I think, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely. No, I agree with you there, 100%.
yeah, so yeah, I'm very bullish on where games are now. I mean, I thought it was very interesting that there were 3,000 names credited on Red Dead Redemption 2, and it went on for 105 missions, more than 100 hours,
Hmm.
uh, and yet it gets beat out by God of War. 2 years ago. For Game of the Year on almost everything, made by Sony over 5 years with 300 people, right?
Yep.
And and then you get stuff like Untitled Goose Game, made by one person. So games are thriving right now,
Hmm.
and
There's
that's
too
that's
many of them, which is a good thing. It's a good problem to
yeah,
have.
yeah. I mean, that's the part I definitely have not adjusted to, which is like I'm trying to come up with my top 10 games of the year or top 10 games of the decade or so, but I'm not getting a chance to play uh, even a small percentage of everything that comes out, right? So
Yeah,
so yeah, it's turning out to be very subjective and selective as to how you figure out what's the best game of the year now.
definitely. So you said Last of Us is your favorite game, which is awesome to hear because it's one of my favorite games of all time. But I'm assuming you're excited for Last of Us Part 2. But is there other games in 2020 that you're excited for?
Yeah, definitely Last of Us Part Two. I think I got my hands on it at the preview event
Oh,
that they
really?
had. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
and
jealous.
and they made it so much more interactive.
Mm,
So you could do things like say squeeze in between a tight area. If you're trying to avoid some people, you could hide underneath a truck that's parked, and then there wasn't as much say input lag as
hmm.
the first game had on a lot of
Interesting.
like you know zombies or guys are charging at you and you think you did something but you did it too late or whatever.
Hmm.
So I think they're working pretty hard on making that much better. I think Cyberpunk 2077 has, all of the production value of something like Grand Theft Auto 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2, and it's great to see Rockstar get some serious competition on that.
I agree.
Yeah,
I got to see that. I'm sure you've seen more than I have, most likely, but I got to see, I think, about 20 minutes of it at E3, and someone played in front of us, and it was better than I expected. Like, I've been following it. I love everything about it. I'm super into the genre, and I'm highly anticipating it. But seeing it played in front of me, I was like, this is a big game. They're working their ass off to make this game into something that could compete with something like from Rockstar or any of the other big companies out there. So
yeah. I look forward to Doom Eternal.
mhm.
I would hope Dying Light 2 comes out. I don't know. It sounds like it may not.
Yeah,
I
worried about
think
that one.
a lot of the big games, but yeah, I still hold out hopes for things that are on sort of the I guess the edge of mainstream gaming now. Let's
Mhm.
say VR. I think I'm hoping Half-Life Alyx and Medal of Honor are also going to really give VR the much needed boost that it needs.
I'm a huge proponent of VR, and anytime someone's like, it's kind of a fad," I'm like, I don't think so. I really don't think so. And I want people to. Sony's been really good about supporting PSVR, and finally we're getting like, well, Half-Life in general, but to put a name like that on VR, I know some people have the reservations, but I think it's kind of powerful because I think that will sell headsets. I mean, I have a Vive, I have PSVR, and they're really incredible. And like, I just the tech is there; it's in its infancy, but the only way we can get it to be better is to support it. And so, with Half-Life Alyx and Medal of Honor coming out, I do hope, like you were saying, that they really just they resonate, and they're well received because there's a lot riding on them. So
Yeah, yeah. And I'm hoping that Apple really dives into the augmented reality front as well and does something there. But a couple of weeks ago, I got to visit a company in Silicon Valley here that's putting electronics onto a contact lens, and it's going to put that on your eye and enable you to see augmented reality from your eyeball.
so it's happening. It's finally happening in
Yeah,
the future.
yeah.
Because I
So
wear contacts already, so I'm ready to go.
yeah, they got prototypes for it now, and I think within a
Man,
couple of years, it's going to be out there, and then after that, you can start thinking about like, hey, this will change games as well, right?
yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you could have a HUD when you're walking around and all sorts of weird stuff. A map.
Yeah.
That's that's kind of
So
scary, but I
so
love
you'll
tech.
recognize people, but you can't remember their names, right?
That'd be such a good thing for me because I forget names so easily.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do you think about the upcoming consoles, and what do you think about streaming coming to the mix, and if we're even going to get another console cycle after this?
Uh,
Kind of
I
a big
mean,
question.
yeah, I think that is a good question about whether we're going to get another console cycle. But in some ways, it won't matter in that maybe the PC and the consoles are becoming so close that
Mhm.
um, I think we're always going to get that great experience. Exactly how it gets delivered to us, there's going to be options now. It's going to say come through the PC, it's going to come through a console, or it may be streamed to us, from a cloud gaming center, right?
Mhm.
So I don't think there's worry about the future of what kind of console like games. Uh, I do. I don't really know enough yet about exactly what's in the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, but they're going to be very similar, just
Yeah.
because they're coming from the same roots of AMD, and uh, if you start with the same sort of graphics processor combination, you can make some clever choices about what you put around that in order to make for better graphics or the best games. But they're going to be almost the same.
Hmm.
I think there are things like, say, are you going to include VR? And Sony has to really think about that. Like, do they really believe in it enough in order to do that? Because Microsoft last time around they screwed it up with the Xbox One by believing that this Connect was
Yeah.
something that people were going to love, right? And instead, it became this expensive part of the machine that nobody appreciated, right? And so,
Yep.
yeah, I think that's where they have to really think hard about, like exactly how are they going to package this at the lowest price to get gamers excited.
If you could guess, what do you think the prices on those consoles would be? I assume 500.
Yeah, probably the 400 or 500 space.
Yeah.
And yeah, they realize that if you stray too far from that, someone like Nintendo is going to come along and totally undercut you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No, they're really good about that.
yeah,
And then yeah, with streaming, I didn't think Stadia was gonna start the revolution, but do you
mhm.
think that's gonna be? I feel like Xbox is gonna really lead the way in that because they're gonna have it part of the whole package that people are already ready to invest in, and they're gonna slowly just kind of like
Mhm.
present it to everybody like, hey, you have the option for streaming here, and
Mhm.
then it'll slowly take over from there. Whereas like with Stadia, it just shows up. It's like this is what it does, and some people are stoked, some people aren't. So I don't. What's your opinion on streaming and where it's gonna
Yeah,
go?
I mean, I definitely think like they have this advantage on Game Pass, and they're gonna
Yep.
sort of proliferate this subscription across all of their platforms, the PC, the the next Xbox, and that's going to be a good thing. I I think Sony has this great history of investing in single player story based games that are just
Mm-hmm.
really wonderful exclusives, and so I think that's the way they definitely fight back.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, I don't know if I think Microsoft got that religion and bought all those companies, in the last couple of years in order to try to match that. But there's like an interesting sort of strategy shift at Microsoft to be more open, and they may not put their exclusives totally as exclusive on the Xbox Series X as much as Sony might for the PlayStation 5, and you have to wonder whether that's gonna help them or hurt them.
Yeah, it's something I think about a
Microsoft,
lot.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I have opinions on this, but I don't have any inside track wisdom yet. Like I would always try to get that,
Mm,
but yeah, I'm not on the inside track here.
yeah. I know you follow tech as well, so what current and upcoming tech excites you the most?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mentioned that contact lens thing,
Hmm.
and that's I'm forgetting the company name, but that will be good. Um, I have an elderly mom, and I'm actually happy that the tech industry has shifted some so that it's actually thinking about technology for old people and what it could do for them.
Hmm.
All these boomers are going to be retiring soon, and it's a
Hmm.
big market, right? And it's gotten ignored in that, like, I gave my mother a iPhone hoping that she would FaceTime me and wouldn't ever feel lonely, right?
Hmm.
And she could not figure out how to turn the thing on, right? And it's like she had grew up with rotary phones and had no real familiarity with touchscreens, and so it just became a nightmare, right? To try to
Hmm.
say, you can't explain to somebody how to use this, right? When you're talking on the phone. Um, so I think that these companies are now getting it, and they're actually making technology for elderly people, but also for caregivers who have to take care of these elderly people, and like a fall detection watch that you push strap onto somebody's wrist, and if they fell, they will notify. Not only they were asked the person, "Did you fall?" and they could tap a button that says yes, but also it will just notify you with an alert that you should check this out because your elderly person fell, right?
Hmm.
So I like that. Uh,
Yeah, I get excited when I
uh,
see like I think it's Samsung they because over in Korea, I guess they do a lot of tech when it comes to like caregiving and hospital stuff, which is really interesting. Um, but I saw like these legs that help you stand and walk better. That even though it's not super exciting for anyone looking for like the crazy tech, I think it's really neat that we're merging technology.
Yeah, it's like an
In
exoskeleton, right? It's like
exactly,
Call of Duty.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And just if it could even help someone walk or
Mhm.
move in a way, I think is a really great direction to be going with tech.
Yeah. I also
So
saw like three different kinds of flying cars. The Hyundai is working with Uber to make a flying taxi.
are they really?
Yeah, and
Wow, okay.
so
That's the
so
future.
at CES they showed these things off, and they're prototypes now, but hopefully they will get them right. I think.
Yeah, that's a whole new it's a whole new frontier.
Hmm.
Let's see. One more question. So I'm going to kind of close this out a bit. Are you optimistic for the future of gaming, social media, and games journalism?
Hmm. Um, I think two out of three of those things certainly need a lot of work.
Yeah,
I think the future of games is solid, just totally solid, and it dwarfs the size of the movie and music industries combined now, and so
which I love.
I think
That took over.
like you point at a company like Disney, and they just shut down their gaming businesses, and they also acquired Fox, and then they sold off those gaming businesses. But Disney is actually maybe not as clueless about games as you might think, because they license a lot of the best game companies now to make the games for them, and so Star Wars, Jedi Fallen
Marvel.
Order,
Yeah.
yeah, and Marvel Spider-Man, they're some of the best games out there, and Disney is collecting this money, and so
Hmm.
when you have, say, the biggest entertainment company in the world recognizing that there's this value here, I think you can sort of appreciate that gaming is going to be taken care of, right, by the largest companies in the industry, but it also has so much opportunity down at the bottom with people creating these games like, Journey, Untitled Goose Game, Celeste, all the things that have just bubbled up from the bottom. And you have game companies like, say, Epic Games doing their part to make sure that those companies thrive. They're only taking a 12% cut on sales instead of 30% like Steam.
Hmm.
So, there's different people who recognize where what the opportunities are and how to make them grow and get bigger. So gaming has no problem. Game journalism, still, yeah, you could say I'm doing my part to damage it,
But
but actually
you're
I'm
also sitting
not
here talking to
trying.
me though, so.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I am hoping that it grows and
Mhm.
it thrives as well. I think the independence of it is important.
Yeah.
I think influencers have shown that they are massive and important and popular, but they can be paid by those companies to say what they're saying, right?
Hmm.
And as much as people sort of suspect or hate this about game journalists, we're not part of that group that is taking money from the folks
No,
that
no
write.
games journalists are taking money from anybody or
Well,
getting access to
I'm not
games
going to,
premieres or.
I'm not going to say that, but at
Okay.
least part of our standard way of operating
Hmm.
is supposed to be objective, to be independent, and to not take this money. I mean, they can advertise on our sites, or they could say be a sponsor of our conferences or whatever,
Yeah.
but direct bribery payments to say something exactly as you want to say it. You know. No, I'm not. I'm not working as part of that company. I'm not. I'm not working for Disney. I'm not working for Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
I can show you my W-2s that show this, and you would not be totally impressed with it. So, uh, I don't think people get into game journalism for the um, the lucrative opportunities that come to you, right? Um,
Yeah. I always
and
do suspect though that some people may be influenced by access, possibly though.
Mm-hmm.
of whatever. And I'm not on the inside, so that's just my speculation. It's something that I hear from a lot of people as well. But I don't believe everybody would be doing that. It's probably a very small group of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I do suspect sometimes that some people lean in certain directions with their opinions on games because you could possibly upset somebody and maybe not get the next scoop or the next invite to whatever event.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's okay to think about that, which is like, oh, I might piss these folks off
Yeah.
if I really say something off the handle or off, whatever, crazy. But you remember that you have to extract their point of view, right?
Hmm.
You go interview the people at that company, and they will give you their best pitch about, like, this is why it's a great game. This is, have you thought about all these things that you can do in this game? When you're reviewing it, you're just reviewing it based on what you think about it. But when you're reporting and writing a story and producing journalism, you have to get their point of view, right?
Yeah.
And you should also, not ignore the point of view of gamers, right? And so, like, the funny thing that happens in mobile games these days, and like the free-to-play microtransaction-based mobile games, is that
Hmm.
every once in a while, the gamers revolt, right? And they say, you're squeezing us. You're charging twice as much for this box that we bought that we
Yep.
paid for it last year, and why is that? And so they stage a boycott, and I will write about that, right? And sometimes when I've written about those things, the next time around they come to me and they say, will you tell the company that they're screwing this up again, and whatever. And so uh, you know we pay attention to what the gamers have to say as well when we're writing these stories and trying to be objective, right? So
Hmm.
if I was purely worried about offending the companies, I would never write these boycott stories, right?
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
yeah.
What do you think games journalism could do better to possibly regain trust with gamers or just in general?
I mean, adapting to this new age as much as possible. Like, we're becoming very visual creatures, and
Hmm.
I am this old newspaper journalist here. Maybe I should flip it so that I'm producing a lot more video, but not the kind of video that gets me into trouble, but
Yeah.
higher quality video
Hmm.
that tells the story in a better way. Like, I have a college age kid, and the kid put on an application, my dad tells stories with words. That's not enough for me, right?
Hmm.
And visually telling stories is actually more like what you maybe ought to try to do. Um,
Yeah.
and I think game journalists also, we don't have an association. We don't have a group that like Jeff Keighley runs his own business giving out the game awards, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a collective group where we can band together and speak for ourselves, right? Say the way that the Entertainment Software Association speaks for the game industry,
Okay, gotcha.
the publishers, right? And so
Hmm.
so when we come under attack, we have to fight that image problem one by one. Uh,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of time to say defend yourself when you're under attack. And so it's a bit sad that you know we don't have a way of collectively speaking up when people think the worst of us, right?
Hmm. Yeah, there's no single representation. It's all these individual
Mhm.
outlets and specific people who wrote the article or did the review and stuff. And I do think people kind of assume there is this across the board camaraderie between games journalists, and I
Mhm.
think that thought process kind of fuels the idea of this uh, war between
Mhm.
gamers and games journalists. But
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I think, say, like, when I came under attack during the Cuphead days, nobody invited me up onto some talk show to say, hey, Dean, can you transparently tell us what was going on here? And, we will disseminate this widely so that people understand, why you're such a screw up or whatever. uh, you know, I, I, I I do wish that there were sometimes better ways to communicate about being a communicator, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I see missing in this whole equation is there's no communication happening. It's just people with their own ideas yelling it into nothing. And I think it's really important to just kind of get the answers you're seeking. So I really appreciate you even giving me this opportunity to, for my own sake, understand you better, but possibly, hopefully, getting people to see this and understand you better as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah.
And,
Do you have any questions for me? Anything I missed possibly, or something you might have want to talk about before I close this out?
I think we're good. We've been at it a long time. People might be getting sick of me again.
Yeah. They might like you even more after this. I mean, I've enjoyed this conversation. Um, so yeah, closing out then, what's on the horizon for you? Any projects coming up? Anything with GamesBeat coming up? And yeah,
Well, I'm gonna try to hit some conferences without catching a coronavirus, and I'm gonna
good
go
luck.
to the Dice Summit in a couple of weeks and meet with a lot of industry leaders there, I think, and then I go to GDC. Uh, we have our own conference coming up in April in Los Angeles called the GamesBeat Summit. That's it's at the end of April, and then I'll be hitting
Cool.
E3. So I'm sort of starting the whole cycle of a new year, covering all the stuff that's coming out in games. I am a little disturbed that so many games have slipped because they slipped into the spring this year
Hmm.
or last year, and now they're slipping toward the end of the year. And I'm
Yeah,
just
it's weird.
hoping we get a Cyberpunk this year. Otherwise, I'm going to be worried. Like,
I
where's all the games?
Yeah, one more delay on that, I'll be pretty worried about it. That's a pretty substantial delay they put on that game. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Very cool. Where can people read your articles and watch your videos and all that stuff?
On venturebeat.com and gamesbeat.com. You can get to them that way. I'm Dean Tak on Twitter, and yeah, maybe you shouldn't watch my videos actually, but
If they
we have a VentureBeat YouTube site as well.
Ooh, one last thing. If you could say anything to the people who negatively view you negative, what would you say to them?
Well, I'm sorry for getting you all riled up again and playing so poorly, and I'm trying, not to make fun of anybody here. I'm not making fun of the game. I'm not
Hmm.
deliberately trying to play it poorly. I got stuck and I tried to figure it out. I eventually did figure it out, and I'm happy that I did that.
Good.
But I think I'm going to try to include more context and description in any kind of video that I'm going to be posting in the future so that we don't have so much miscommunication.
Very cool. Yeah, I think transparency, like I said, is the biggest thing that's missing here. So I think people
And
will
I
appreciate
hate
that.
people. I hate people who don't apologize. So yes, I am sorry. Right?
Yeah.
I'm apologetic. Wouldn't qualify that and say, "Oh, I'm sorry you got offended." Right?
Hmm.
I'm actually sorry. And so hopefully, um, you know, people will appreciate what I do for what it is.
Yeah. That's all you can hope for, and hopefully they do, and hopefully people will take it easy on you because I think some people are way too extreme about, their opinions of you based off of some gameplay or some reviews they might have made mistakes on. But I mean, you're just a human. People make mistakes, and it's video games. It's just video games. So I mean, like people gotta just chill out a little bit. But yeah.
Oh, by the way, I would bring up this one little statistic that, yeah, I think there's five major things where I've totally pissed off people, right, in this
Hmm.
career. I think at VentureBeat, I'm well over having produced more than 15,000 articles in the last 12 years.
Wow.
So, um, five out of 15,000 is not a
Not
totally
so
great
bad.
record.
Yeah. No, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dean, for coming on and talking with me. I really appreciate it. And I really enjoyed the conversation. And you're invited to come back anytime. Hopefully, you don't have another controversy, but if you do, you want to explain yourself, you can do it here. I will definitely welcome that and not be too judgmental about
All
it.
right.
So,
Thank you. I appreciate
all
it.
right.
You're very diplomatic, and that works well.
All right.
So,
Thanks.
All right.
Take it
All
easy.
right.